So many souls will never truly discover their own freedom. Indeed. And while the herd wallows in the sweetness of self-deception, in the comfort of borrowed morals, in the illusion of a happiness that conceals a profound decay, I, Elias, or whatever you choose to call me in your foolishness, rip away the veil. Today I confront you with a truth few possess the courage to gaze upon directly. It is a truth that, like a corrosive acid, will dissolve the soft fantasies you've constructed, especially concerning the most enigmatic and often most deceptive nature of woman. Do not expect gentle words. Do not await the soothing balm of your modern values, those invisible chains that have enslaved you, just as Aldous Huxley prophesied in his Brave New World, not with iron shackles, but with the opioid sweetness of pleasure, pornography, and unending distraction. You have been conditioned, like rats in Skinner's labyrinth, to cherish your servitude, to crave the soma pill that liberates you from the uncomfortable reality of your own insignificance. And nowhere is this more evident, more perilously masked than in your perception of woman, reduced to an object of consumption or an unattainable ideal, or worse yet, a mere extension of your own ego. Do you truly believe you've achieved liberation? Do you imagine your enlightened era of equality and rights has at last unveiled the secret to harmony between the sexes? How utterly deluded! You have traded old lies for new illusions, and the outcome is precisely the same: weakness, resentment, a pathetic incapacity for true greatness. Your liberation is merely a new golden cage, forged from comfort, fear of confrontation, and the evasion of your own internal contradictions. You have embraced moral apathy, as a classical thinker once described, allowing your principles to become theoretical, while your actions languish in mediocrity. And woman in her ancient wisdom, has learned to navigate this new farce with a mastery that surpasses your own. Allow me to tear you from your blindness. Permit me to reveal the summit, the dark peak I have contemplated in my most solitary vigils. Because woman, in her deepest essence, is not what you have been taught, nor what you tell yourselves in your feeble fantasies of companionship and mutual understanding. Woman is the primordial enigma, the abyss and the surface, the dance and the veil, the trap and the salvation. She is the primal Aphrodite, the untamed force of procreation and destruction, the Dionysian chaos and the Apollonian form, intertwined in a whirlwind of contradictions. And he who dares not comprehend her authentic will, he who seeks to domesticate her with your pathetic rules, will perish. He will perish in confusion, in resentment, or in the profoundest of mediocrities, reduced to insignificance. Woman, that being whose depth is often mistaken for superficiality, whose strength hides behind apparent weakness, whose cunning exceeds that of the most brilliant men. If he clings to linear logic and the positivism of your age, you, the moderns, have attempted to domesticate her, to cage her within your categories, to reduce her to a mere reflection of your desires, or, worse, to a symbol of your own moral cowardice and your fear of life. It is like attempting to catch the wind in a net or fire in the palm of your hand. Every attempt to define her, to contain her, is a sign of your weakness, of your fear of the uncontrollable, of that which will not submit to your pathetic rules and your fantasies of an ordered world. You have reflected in your pathetic quest for balance and inner peace, that peace which is merely the antechamber to the death of the spirit, on the true will of woman, not the will she proclaims aloud to appease your norms, to gain your approval, but the will that dances in her blood, that whispers in her subconscious. Do you believe her deepest desire is equality, harmony? What vanity! Woman wants to conquer. Woman wants to possess. Woman is, in her purest instinct, an embodiment of the will to power, not your crude will to power, that of mediocre tyrants who merely crave external control and brute domination, the kind that shattered Europe in wars and reduced it to ruins. I speak of a more subtle, more penetrating will, one that dominates the spirit and body of those around her almost imperceptibly. A will that manifests in the creation of life, in the seduction that annuls reason, in the perpetuation of the lineage, in life itself affirming itself against nothingness and decay. Observe the world around you. See how men, in their naivete, surrender to a smile, a gesture, an appearance, the veil. You believe you are the conquerors, the deciders, the shapers of destiny. Foolishness. You are often mere pawns in a game whose rules you do not comprehend, moved by more expert hands, by a will older than your own, a will that resides in the very fiber of the universe, in the essence of existence. Woman in her essence is older than the world, while woman, more deeply rooted in the earth, more attuned to life's primal forces and nature's eternal cycles, observes your self-made contrivances, your abstractions, your sterile constructs, and your flight from the body. You speak of love. What an empty word on your lips, so devoid of its truly formidable meaning. Love, as a woman experiences it, is not the sweet romantic fantasy you've invented to soothe your frailties, to flee loneliness and confront your own emptiness. No, for woman, love is a will to dominate, to possess, to unify. It is the yearning to sculpt another in her image, to bend him to her will, to imbue him with her own spirit, to make him the instrument of her fullest self-assertion. It is not an act of altruistic surrender, but a subtle conquest, an entanglement of invisible bonds that, once woven, are nearly impossible to break without tearing away living flesh. It is the will for the other to be a reflection of her own power, a means to her own transcendence or to her own lineage, her legacy in the whirlwind of time. And when man, in his pathetic aspiration for communication and understanding, attempts to unravel the mysteries of the feminine heart, he encounters a labyrinth, a maze of mirrors where every reflection is a distortion, every path a snare, every word a veil, every silence an abyss. Woman is the art of dissimulation, the perpetual veil, the ever unattainable promise, the siren whose song lures sailors to their doom. And he who believes her transparent, who deems her simple, will be devoured by his own naivete, by his inability to see beyond the surface she herself projects. Your obsession with stark truth, with Apollonian clarity, blinds you to veiled truth, to the Dionysian force, which is the truth of life itself, always masked, always becoming, always hidden in its own manifestation. Woman, that being who, like a feline, plays with her prey before devouring it. That being who, in her instinct, knows how to weave webs of dependence, how to knot a man's soul to her own existence, how to extract his strength, his vitality, his will. You, in your clumsiness, lament her lack of logic, her irrationality. What fools! That is her strength. That is the compass that guides her in the tempestuous sea of existence, while your reason condemns you to paralysis, to sterility, to the death of will, to inauthentic life. Woman does not need your categories. She is, she becomes, she creates, and you, what do? Analyze her, dissect her in a pathetic attempt to control her, to reduce her to a schema that cannot contain her. Look at your partners, look at your mothers, your daughters. Do you truly believe you know them? Do you believe their laughter, their tears, their everyday gestures reveal their true nature? Or behind the mask of sweetness, of tenderness, of submission, masks that society itself has often imposed, and which she has learned to use with mastery for her own ends, a volcanic force stirs, an indomitable will, a resentment accumulated from centuries of oppression, and an ancestral wisdom that man, in his arrogance and blindness, has forgotten. A wisdom not expressed in philosophical treatises or laws, but in blood, in instinct, in earth, in the body that feels and knows, without need of concepts. And what is that wisdom? It is the wisdom of becoming, of life affirming itself, of procreation, of the perpetuation of the species. Woman is the gateway to the future, the guardian of the blood, the embodiment of the vital élan, of primordial force. And man, in his aspiration to transcendence, to pure mind, to ideal morality, often forgets that it is in the earth, in the body, in life, that reproduces itself, where true power resides, the true affirmation of existence. You, the spiritual, the rational, have distanced yourselves from this primal truth, from raw vitality. And that is why you are weak, that is why you are sterile, that is why your souls wither. You who cling to the herd morality, to the slave morality I have so scorned, that morality of compassion and equality that weakens. How can you expect to comprehend woman, that being who defies your categories, who mocks your conventions? You have grown accustomed to the comfort of superficial goodness, That goodness which allows you to fantasize about being virtuous while you practice small daily cruelties, while your will weakens, while you turn away from the naked truth of your own nature. And woman, in her deepest cunning, knows how to exploit this weakness. She knows how to use your guilt, your need for approval, your fear of judgment to mold you to her whim. Your goodness is her tool, your morality, her prison, from which she often escapes with a smile. While you congratulate yourselves on your supposed virtue, you have reduced the relationship between man and woman to a negotiation, to a contract, to a pathetic attempt to erase all differences, to smooth the sharp edges of a growing malady, an equality that exists solely within your own feeble minds, minds that recoil from natural hierarchy, from creative tension, from the power that erupts from conflict. But life itself does not crave equality. Life demands hierarchy. It hungers for tension. It strives to overcome, to forge new forms, new pinnacles, new manifestations of the will to power. And the connection between man and woman, in its most exalted form, is not a soothing balm of peace nor a tranquil haven. It is an arena of battle, a crucible where two wills clash, measure each other, and challenge one another to ascend to a superior state of being. Woe betide the one who seeks only mere solace, simple comfort, the contentment of the last man in this union. He will ultimately be reduced to the most pathetic of existences, a mere spectre of what he might have been, a shadow of his own latent will. The man who pursues happiness in woman, clinging to her as an anchor in the sea of his own mediocrity, is a castaway destined for insignificance. Woman is not your safe harbor. She is not your salvation. She is the tempest, the abyss, the very challenge that compels you to strive for more, or to perish in the misery of your own cowardice, your inability to truly be free. And in your age of self-help and readily available coaching, where you all strive for self-realization and acceptance, a pursuit that Montaigne, in his Serenity, approached with far greater depth than your own, you forget that true self-realization, as Carl Jung hinted at with his work on the shadow, necessitates embracing what frightens you most, your own darkness, your most primal impulses, your animalistic side, and its inherent will to power. And woman, in her radical otherness, is a mirror in which you can see your own reflection. Yet when a woman possesses learned inclinations, there is something within her sexuality that is not functioning as it should. Listen to me. You who merely drift through existence, blind and deaf to the most piercing truths, you believe you understand the world, that you grasp the dynamics that bind you, the forces that propel you. What naivete! You have been fed fables, sweetened lies about love, equality, and human nature. And among all these illusions, the most insidious, the most captivating, and simultaneously the most destructive, is the one you have woven around woman herself. Around woman, that creature shrouded in veils of mystery, idealized to the point of nausea by the weak, and reviled by those who dare to look directly. You have been taught to revere her, to fear her, to protect her, to subjugate her, but never, never to comprehend her in her rawest, most Dionysian, most authentic essence. You have constructed a simulacrum, an idol of clay and sugar, and you kneel before it, blind to the reality hidden behind the mask. And that blindness, oh, that blindness, is the root of your deepest suffering, of your most profound disorientation. Do you imagine I speak of cheap misogyny, of archaic prejudices? What foolishness! That is for small minds, for those who wallow in moralizing platitudes and resentment. I do not come to appease, but to tear away the veils of your complacency. My purpose is not to soften the truth, but to unleash it upon you like a glacial cascade, so that you may feel the biting cold, so that you may awaken. Because the truth about woman, that dark and vital truth, has been concealed not by her, but by yourselves, by your cowardice, by your fear of life in its most brutal and beautiful form. And I, Elias, the one who gazes at you from the abyss of life, the one who has danced with death and with wisdom, I will tell you what has been veiled. I will reveal the truth that, if you dare to confront it, will transform your perception of relationships, of love, and of yourselves. It will be a raw revelation without mitigation, a slap that will rouse you from your stupor. And perhaps, just perhaps, you will then be able to breathe a purer air, the air of genuine freedom. You have been told that woman is an enigma, a complex and inscrutable being. Nonsense. There is no enigma where there is a will to power, more subtle, more disguised, but no less relentless. The true enigma is not woman herself, but your inability to perceive the primordial force that drives her, veiled by centuries of herd morality and domestication. You have projected onto her your weaknesses, your baser desires, your cravings for comfort and security, and you have confined her to a role that suffocates her. And with her, you suffocate yourselves. Do you not feel that latent frustration in your relationships? That emptiness that no companionship seems to fill? That incessant quest for a connection that slips away like sand through your fingers is the echo of the lie, the lament of your deceived souls. You feel alone, even when accompanied, misunderstood even when everything is explained to you. And you ask yourselves why. Why this perpetual dissatisfaction? Why this dance of masks and disguises where no one reveals their true self? The answer is simple and brutal. Because you have forsaken truth in favor of comfort, because you have preferred the sweet poison of illusion to the bitter, but a purifying draught of reality. Nowhere is this choice more stark, its consequences more devastating, than in the intricate connection between man and woman, often misconstrued as love, that worn-out, corrupted concept. You've been told love is surrender, selflessness, sacrifice, a mere morality of slaves. Love, in its profoundest essence, is a vibrant manifestation of the will to power. It is the boundless affirmation of self, the outward surge of one's own strength toward another, an attempt to elevate or to subjugate, to forge them in our image, or to be molded by them. In the woman, this will to power assumes varied forms, cloaked in grace, allure, and apparent frailty. And there lie your grave errors. You fail to perceive strength because you anticipate weakness. You do not recognize cunning because you seek innocence. You miss the truth because you cling to idealization. How many of you have been consumed by bitterness, resentment, and disillusionment? You discover that the woman was not the fantasy your feeble minds had concocted. The fault is not hers, but yours, for projecting your own inadequacies onto another, your own cowardice when faced with reality. The woman, in her instinctive wisdom, has long understood the potency of the mask, the power of illusion. She knows that the world values appearance above essence, that the surface often proves more effective than depth. She frequently employs this wisdom, not out of malice, but from the imperative need to survive, to assert herself, to wield her own will to power in a world that has historically sought to shackle her. While man, in his clumsiness, exhibits his strength directly, the woman exercises hers obliquely, surreptitiously, through the art of seduction, manipulation, and influence. She is not to be condemned for this, but understood. Your romantic comedies, your melancholic love songs, your psychological theories attempting to pigeonhole her into predefined patterns, all are desperate attempts to control the uncontrollable. They are futile efforts to comprehend what can only be experienced in its terrifying fullness. You have tried to assign her a name, a diagnosis, a purpose, hoping she would cease to be the untamed force that frightens you and become something predictable, manageable, domesticable. But the woman, like life itself, scoffs at your attempts to control. She is chaos and order, creation and destruction, beauty and abyss. Now, who among you dares to deny feeling this tension, this dichotomy in your own life? This compulsion to idealize the other, to endure the starkness of their reality? That frustration upon discovering that the other does not fit the mold you meticulously constructed. Elias, in his solitary contemplation, understood that true torment is not the world's chaos, but the illusion that we can control it. And the relationship with the woman is the perfect microcosm of this torment. You desire to control her, predict her, possess her, and in doing so, you strangle her, and with her, your own freedom. You want her to conform to your concept of the feminine, and when she doesn't, you suffer. What then is the dark truth that has been hidden from you? That the woman, in her Dionysian essence, seeks not peace but life in its most intense, most procreative, most transformative form. She seeks not to be your reflection, but the force that challenges you to be more, to surpass yourselves, to transcend your own limitations. And if you confine her within your mediocre expectations, within your longing for security and comfort, she will wither, and with her, your spirit will wither too. You have been sold the idea that happiness in a partnership resides in harmony, in mutual complacency, in the absence of conflict. A lie. The true relationship is a battlefield, a dance of power and counterpower, where each asserts and redefines themselves in the other's presence. It is the friction from which the spark of life emerges, where both can grow and transcend. If you seek only dead calm, the monotony of complacency, you seek death disguised as peace. Observe your world. Aldous Huxley warned you of a pleasant slavery, one where the chains are invisible because they are forged from gratification. Do you not see how the modern woman is often a victim of this very trap? She is promised liberation through superficiality, instant self-gratification, the hypersexualization that reduces her to a consumable object, and at the same time, she is shackled to an unattainable ideal of perfection, to a constant need for external validation. And you, men, become accomplices in this charade, seeking in her a prefabricated fantasy, a solace for your weaknesses. She is the one who yearns for strength, who seeks the affirmation of life, but you, with your herd mentality, have taught her to fear her own power. You have whispered in her ear that weakness is a virtue, that equality means being the same, not different, and by making her weak, you have made her resentful. Resentment is the most subtle poison that corrodes relationships. And what of motherhood? Of that primordial force? You have been told it is a noble and selfless instinct. Yet it is also a primal outpouring of the will to power, the inherent drive to sustain one's existence, to forge something beyond oneself, to imprint one's decree upon the future. When this vital force lacks genuine expression, when it is stifled or perverted, it turns inward and against the man beside her. Man, for his part, has grown accustomed to a depiction of woman that is convenient, predictable. Woman as sustenance, as muse, as complement. But be warned, woman is not a mirror for your vanity, nor a cushion for your comfort. She is a force in her own right, a vortex of life that, if not channeled, will sweep both you and her away. Why is this truth concealed? Because it is inconvenient, because it demands effort, because it shatters your illusions of control and security. It shatters the image of the ideal woman that your society has constructed to keep you docile and predictable. The ideal woman, according to your world, is she who does not challenge, who does not disquiet, who conforms to your needs and anxieties. The truth, the profound truth, is that woman, like man, is a creature of chasms and peaks, of light and shadow. To deny her shadow is to deny her completeness, her inherent grandeur. Fairy tales have taught you that true love is the journey's end, the happily ever after. What an atrocious lie. Authentic love is the commencement of the adventure, an invitation to a precipice from which you may either plunge into oblivion or ascend to new heights. And woman, in this odyssey, is not your crutch, but the power that propels you, that dares you to risk everything, to lose everything in order to gain something infinitely greater, your own liberation, your own majesty. A classical thinker, in his unique way, spoke of mundane malevolence, of how good people can become cruel through minor, almost imperceptible transgressions. Is it not a cruelty of omission to deny the complexity of woman, to confine her to a role, to an image that fails to honor her immense will to power, her Dionysian spirit? Goodness predicated on ignorance or cowardice is the most insidious of cruelties, for it disguises oppression as virtue. And what do? You lament misunderstanding, solitude, dissatisfaction. But have you dared to perceive woman not as an object of desire, not as a romantic ideal, not as a victim to safeguard, but as she truly is, a force of nature, an embodiment of the will to power, as intricate, as contradictory, as glorious as life itself? If you fail to do so, you are condemned to the mediocrity of your relationships, to the frustration of your expectations, to the solitude of your very souls. Schopenhauer, that illustrious pessimist, viewed social life as a theater of illusions. And how right he was. Nowhere is this theatricality more apparent than in the dance of relationships between men and women. Both of you enact roles, portray characters, hoping the other will validate you, complete you, save you. In this charade, you forfeit the chance for a genuine encounter, for a collision of wills that could birth something truly magnificent. My proposition is not for the faint-hearted, not for those who seek solace. It is for those with the courage to gaze into the abyss and to dance with it. Cease seeking the woman you have been taught to seek. Cease demanding that she fit into your narrow molds. Dare to behold her in her raw essence, in her strength, in her contradictions. Dare to perceive the will to power that animates her, the instinctive wisdom that guides her, the mask she employs to navigate this world of illusions. In doing so, you will not only liberate her, but liberate yourselves. You will cease to be prisoners of your own projections, of your own fears. You will be able to forge a relationship not founded on fantasy, but on reality. A relationship that is a constant overcoming, a dance of forces where both propel each other to go further, to be greater, to be freer. Or allow woman to be the force she is, without attempting to dominate or idealize her. Permit her to manifest her will to power, even if it disquiets you, even if it challenges you. And witness how, from that collision of truths, a relationship can emerge that transcends mediocrity, that soars above the expectations of the herd. Do not seek your salvation in her, but rather the mirror of your own will to overcome. Carl Jung spoke of the shadow, of the hidden part of ourselves that we must integrate to achieve wholeness. The truth of woman is, for many of you, a part of your own collective shadow. That which you have suppressed, idealized, or feared. It is time to integrate that shadow, to acknowledge the Dionysian force, the cunning, the will to power that woman embodies and which, often due to your own weakness, you have projected onto her as something negative. Woman is life, and life, as I have taught you, is will to power, is affirmation, transcendence, risk. Do not seek security in her, for it is. Life offers no guarantees. Pursue adventure, embrace challenges, seek the chance to forge something novel, something transcending the paltry expectations of your era. So awaken, cease clinging to illusions. Stop blaming others for your own profound blindness. The truth stands exposed, stark, defiant, and awaiting your direct gaze. Woman, in her inherent complexity, her unwavering strength, her irreplaceable role within life's intricate dance, is neither your adversary nor your savior, nor merely your plaything. She functions as a mirror, a formidable challenge, a gateway toward discovering your own inherent greatness. If you possess the courage to open this door, I do not demand blind adoration or irrational hatred from you. Instead, I ask you to comprehend her, to perceive her in her terrible and glorious truth. Only then and not before can you forge connections that are not confinements, but rather launch pads toward the Übermensch. Relationships that serve not as sanctuaries for your frailties, but as battlegrounds for your will to power. Do you dare to live in such a manner, or do you prefer to continue crawling through the convenient falsehood bequeathed to you? Understand that within the embrace of this profound, challenging truth lies the very seed of your most radiant freedom. All else is mere silence, and the perpetual solitude reserved for those who shrink from life itself.